Your guardian angel has been with you every single day of your life. Every stupid decision, every close call, every moment you walked away from something that should have killed you. That was not luck. That was a job. And here is the part nobody mentions. If you die at the wrong time, that angel gets demoted because of you. Most people picture the afterlife as retirement. Clouds, silence, no meetings, no deadlines, no one asking you to fill out a form in triplicate. A reasonable fantasy. Almost entirely wrong. Because what actually waits on the other side, according to those who claim to have looked, is something closer to a government agency. There are departments. There are ranks. There are assigned responsibilities and consequences for failure. The peace is there too, but only for those who earned it. Everyone else has work to do. Start with the guardian angel, because that is where your story begins and, in a sense, where it ends. From the moment you arrived in this world, one specific being was assigned to you. Not a symbol, not a metaphor, a worker with a task. Keep this soul in the body until the scheduled time of departure. That is the job description. Everything else, the near misses, the strange intuitions, the decisions you almost made and somehow did not, falls under that assignment. The entire length of your life, one entity has been clocking in on your behalf. Now here is where the system gets interesting. If you die on schedule, everything processes normally. The angel closes the file, the transition begins, and the machinery of what comes next moves forward without friction. But if you die suddenly, unexpectedly, off the timeline entirely, that is classified as a program failure, and someone is accountable for program failures. Specifically, your guardian angel. They did not hold the soul in the body until the appointed hour. In the structure of that world, this is not a tragedy.
It is a professional lapse. The consequences range from demotion to full removal from the position, followed by reassignment back into a human life to start over. Think about that for a moment. A being that spent your entire lifetime working for you can face consequences based on how and when you die. Not because of any negligence you would recognize, but because the system does not tolerate deviation from the plan. The reason this matters goes beyond one angel losing a title. When someone exits ahead of schedule, it does not just affect their own story. It pulls threads out of other stories. The person they were supposed to meet 5 years from now never meets them. The conversation that was supposed to happen does not happen. Decisions that depended on that person being present get made differently. One early departure rewrites a dozen other timelines. This is why the system treats it seriously. It is not personal. It is structural. Cultures around the world arrived at this same understanding through completely different routes. The ancient Greeks had Hermes, the psychopomp, a word that translates directly as guide of souls. His job was not to judge the dead, not to reward or punish, simply to escort, to make sure the soul reached the correct destination without getting lost in the territory between worlds. The Egyptians had Anubis performing the same function, guiding the soul through the underworld while the heart was weighed against a feather. Norse tradition had the Valkyries, who selected the dead from battlefields and escorted them to their assigned hall. Every major civilization, without coordination, designed the same role. Someone has to walk the soul through the door. Because souls left alone in that transition do not always find it. Modern near-death experience research landed in the same place from a different direction. In documented accounts across thousands of cases, the most consistently reported figure is not a blinding light or a tunnel. It is a presence, described as a guide, an escort, a being of some kind that appears at the threshold and accompanies the dying person through whatever comes next.
In study after study, across different countries, different religions, different backgrounds, the escort shows up. Researchers at the time called it remarkable. Anyone paying attention to the older traditions called it expected. Now, not every death works the same way. When someone has been ill for a long time and their departure has been anticipated by the system, a different figure arrives. Call it the angel of death if you prefer the old terminology. It appears roughly 3 to 4 days before the end, takes operational control of the transition, and marks the departing soul. At the physical level, something strange often happens here.
A person who has been suffering for weeks suddenly seems better. Family members think the illness is lifting. It is not. What is happening is that the soul has begun its exit process, moving in and out of the body during unconsciousness and sleep. The body is still present, but is no longer the primary address. The soul has already started moving. This is also a vulnerable window, not for the body, which has its own timeline now, for the soul itself. During these partial exits, there are those who attempt contact. The nature of those attempting contact varies depending on what tradition you consult, but the consistent point across all of them is the same. This period requires protection. The guardian angel is still present precisely because of this. What happens next depends entirely on what kind of soul is departing. A soul carrying significant darkness, weight from a life lived without much light, encounters the darker aspect of the transition first. The angel of death does not simply step aside. A relative who died previously may appear, someone familiar, someone the soul trusts, to reduce the panic and provide a recognizable face at an unrecognizable moment. The heavenly escort is present but secondary until the soul stabilizes. A lighter soul, one that has accumulated clarity and experience across its time on earth, moves through quickly. The darker presence retreats almost immediately. The soul is transferred to what you might call the angelic infrastructure and begins its transition without delay. Here is something that gets skipped in most descriptions of this. The dark energy arrives first in every case, without exception. It is not a punishment. It is not a sign of anything you did wrong in this particular life. It is standard procedure. The question is only how long it stays. A soul that has been through this before, that carries the memory of previous transitions even without conscious access to it, does not engage.
It recognizes the pattern and moves past it. A soul encountering this for the first or second time may not know what it is looking at. This is where experience across lifetimes becomes the single most practical asset a soul can have. Not wisdom in the philosophical sense, not virtue in the religious sense. Simple accumulated familiarity with the process of dying. The soul that has done this many times walks through without being detained. The soul that has not may find itself still standing in the hallway long after the door opened. Young souls, those early in their cycle of incarnations, are the ones most likely to become what various traditions call wanderers. Earthbound. Not malevolent, not haunting anyone in any dramatic sense, simply lost. They did not want to leave. They stayed near the body. They watched the funeral. They followed familiar people from room to room in a house that no longer belongs to them. They need a guide, and if no guide arrives in time, they can remain in that in-between state for a very long time by any earthly measure. This is why the escort function exists, not as ceremony, as practical necessity. The experienced souls leave quickly. Some leave without any escort at all. They know the route. They have taken it before. They grieve the departure from everything they built here, yes, but they do not linger at the threshold waiting for someone to explain what just happened. After the crossing comes the Council of Elders. This is not on a fixed schedule. The soul chooses when to appear. If there are unfinished connections in the family line, if someone still living needs something only that soul can provide, time is extended. Time in that place does not work the way it works here, which is part of why religious traditions assigned arbitrary numbers like 40 days, and why those numbers do not match the actual experience.
A soul can remain available to the people it left behind for what feels, from this side, like a very long time. At the council, two figures are present: the angel who brought the soul into this life, and the guide who walked it through the transition. After the council concludes, the guide moves on. The assignment is finished. There is another soul somewhere beginning its approach to the same threshold, and someone needs to be there. What the soul is offered next depends on what it accumulated. The ones who gathered enough experience and light are given a choice: another incarnation or a position within the structure of that world. Become the guide yourself. Become the escort for others making the crossing you just made. The job you needed when you arrived becomes the job you qualify for when you have been through enough. Which brings everything back to the living. Grief is not a private matter in this framework. It has operational consequences. A soul that has made the crossing, that is already in the process of understanding its new condition and moving toward the council, can be pulled back by the weight of extreme mourning from those it left behind. Not by choice, by force of attachment. The soul finds itself unable to complete the transition because the emotional gravity from the other side is too strong. The guides wait. They cannot compel the soul forward. They can only stand there, which by earthly time might mean years, while the soul oscillates between what it left and where it is supposed to go. Disputes over inheritance have the same effect and are considered, in this accounting, perhaps the most avoidable version of the problem. Every argument about who gets the house, who gets the savings, who was loved more according to the distribution of objects, adds density to a soul that is trying to become lighter. The people at the funeral arguing about the furniture are not just being unpleasant. They are making it harder for someone to leave. Children are handled differently. The entire procedure changes. There is no council of elders for children. The transition is fast and without suffering. An archangel is involved at a level that does not apply to adult souls. This is not arbitrary. Children have not had the time to accumulate the weight that makes crossing difficult. They go quickly because there is nothing holding them back. What this entire system suggests, if you are looking for a single thing to take away from it, is that death is not a wall. It is a handoff. Managed, structured, staffed, with clear lines of responsibility and clear consequences when those responsibilities are not met. The people doing the managing are not mysterious. They have roles. They have records. They have, apparently, performance reviews. Your guardian angel has been doing this job since before you knew you needed one. The question worth sitting with is not what happens after you die. It is what kind of soul shows up at that threshold. Because the transition itself is covered, the escort will be there. Whether you walk through the door or stand in the hallway arguing with it, is the only part that was ever actually up to you.
Flight path 7 confirmed. Reroute auxiliary power to